Yes, you called my name, Let the King of my How's everybody doing this morning? Well, you get me this morning. How about that? I'm about to get everybody saved. So, it's been about a month ago that Ian said, hey, I've got this idea. And I said, well, I mean, I'll do it if that's what you want. And I said, if you're that brave and you don't care what I say. And he said, go right ahead. So I really prayed about kind of, how to start and what to do. And my life has changed drastically just in 3 months. And so I'm going through a season in my life that I'm going to share with you guys. And I feel like that it's something that some of you need to hear. I've been praying over you guys for over a month. Just praying that whatever words he wanted me to say, that I would be able to speak clearly to you this morning. So we're going to start. It's called Impossible to Possible. So when I thought about what to preach on this morning, I thought this is kind of cliche, making the impossible possible. But that's really what's been churning in my heart for over 3 months now. And so I always like looking at definitions. You can ask the youth. I look up definitions to everything because I like to break down kind of what it says and what that word actually means. So I looked up the word impossible and possible. So impossible means not able to occur, exist, or be done. Very difficult to deal with. Possible is the opposite, of course. Able to be done within the power of capacity of someone or something. So, how do we cross that bridge from impossible to possible? That's really what we're going to talk about today. I'm not big about when I do youth. I always make my youth group read the scriptures for me so that I can focus, because I'm not the best reader and I will mess up 100 words. So I'll make them do it. So I made them come up here and sit with me today. So Allison, if you'll read Matthew 17 and 20 as we get started. Hang on. There we go.
He replied, "Because you have so little faith, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will be moved. Nothing will be impossible for you."
Lord, we just thank you for this day, God, and we just pray right now, God, that your spirit will just come into this place, Father, that whatever words you have for me, God, that I will speak clearly, Father. Lord, that whatever you have for the people out there, Lord, that you will just let them hear what they need to hear this morning, that lives will be changed in your name. Amen. So we're going to look at this verse for just a minute. So it says, when I read the first verse, it says, because you have so little faith. I thought God already knew that we were human and we were going to have little faith, right? I mean, he knew when he wrote this, he already said it at the beginning, that we're going to have little faith in some situations. Now, some of you may think, oh, I have tons of faith, but do you have it in every single area? That's what we're going to talk about today. And it says, if you had just the faith of a mustard seed. You see, some of us don't even have the faith of a mustard seed in certain situations because we want to deal with it on our own, right? We have those times where we're like, I can do this. I've done this 100 times. Have you ever done something 100 times and on 101 you fail? Because you get so caught up in that moment, you think, I'm good at this. And a lot of times God's like, no, you're not trusting in me now. So that's what I feel on that. So today, I want to ask you a question that we're going to follow the whole thing. And I have about 6 pages of notes, so I'm glad you guys are here to stay. But I want to ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. What is your mountain today? What is your mountain? What are you climbing? What seems like it is impossible for it to be moved? You see, for me, I'm just going to talk today about different things that I deal with, like I did the youth. But for me, my mountain was my weight. Okay? So I had that my whole life, and we're going to talk a little more about that later. But think about what your mountain is. I want to share with you, so I want you to think to yourself. I'm not going to ask you like I asked the youth to tell me what your mountain is. But I want you to think about that. You see, that thing that just stands in your way. You see, we make excuses, and we try to say, well, you know, that we try to say, well, that mountain's always been there. You know, well, you know, I mean, I'm working on that mountain. We're making excuses about it. We go through phases of denial, and we just sit and get so comfortable with the impossible. We think, well, it's impossible, so I can just sit in that, right? I mean, you get comfortable with it. You may have, in a season, prayed for it, and then when it didn't happen, you ceased. And now you're sitting in that time, and you're like, oh, it's okay. I'm here. So we're going to read one of my favorite stories about Peter in his imprisonment. So it's in Acts 12, and we're going to break it down just a little bit and start with verse 1 through 4.
It was about this time that King Herod arrested some who belonged to the church, intending to persecute them. He had James, the brother of John, put to death with the sword. When he saw that this met with approval among the Jews, he proceeded to seize Peter also. This happened during the festival of unleavened bread. After arresting him, he put him in prison, handing him over to be guarded by 4 squads of 4 soldiers each. Herod intended to bring him out for public trial after the Passover.
All right, so you got Herod. He's our obstacle, all right? So I want you to think, now you may have many mountains. I know I do. And I mean, as a bigger person, it's not fun climbing a hill, let alone a mountain. All right? But the thing is that we have all these mountains that we're having to learn to move away. And so the past 3 months, that's what I've had to do. And so we're looking right here at Peter. And so his mountain was Herod. So just think, your mountain may be a person. I think everyone has a person in their life that you're like, oh, like you're like, but God puts that person in your way sometimes because you're supposed to move that mountain. And how amazing is if you move that mountain by letting God move through them, right? So instead of turning that into like that person, I can't stand them, or they're in my way, or like this, like King Herod, that was the mountain. He was mean. Herod was the mountain. You see, it seemed impossible for that to ever be moved. You had James that had been killed, and it looked like Peter was next. Do you find yourself in impossible situations? If you really think of that mountain, do you think that mountain is totally impossible? Now, you may use the Christian and be like, no, with God, all things are possible. But do you really believe that? Is that something that you truly believe? Because that's where you have to get to in your mind, is that you truly believe that impossible thing can become possible. Now let's read verse 5.
So Peter was kept in prison, but the church was praying fervently to God for him.
So what do we get pulled in here? Prayer, right? The church is praying for Peter. See, because nothing's going to be impossible and turned to possible if there's not prayer. It's got to be prayed over. It's got to be sought after. It's got to be covered completely in prayer. So that's what we're seeing in here. You see, and so I'm going to ask you, are you praying for that impossible thing? Are you really pushing yourself and knowing, not only believing it, but also praying over it daily, like constantly just pushing yourself to that limit? Are you telling others to pray? Because sometimes we have to be humble. That's the hardest thing for me, like going to somebody, and I don't know why that is, but like if I'm really going through something, to go to somebody and be like, look, I need you to pray with me over this. Like this is something that I'm really struggling with, and I just need help with that. God wants us to humble ourselves, and it says when 3 or more are gathered in your name, that it will be. So if we see that in the scripture, why do we not follow it? Why do we not go to each other? I mean, this whole church, we could go to 3 people, let alone 50. And get that going. So I find that there's 2 types of people that need a new routine when it comes to prayer. Those who only pray in a disaster. Do you know those people? I've been one of those. Have you been one of those before? Where it's like everything's good, and then all of a sudden you fall. And you're like, Lord, help me. I'm falling. And, like you get to that place. And so that's exactly how I do it too. I'm just kidding. But you're like, everything's good, and you're just like, you're thanking God, but you're not praying, right? You're just and then you get to that disastrous moment, and you start praying. So that's one. The other one is those who fall apart in disaster. The difference is that they don't even pray when disaster hits. They're just like, well, I don't know what to do. And they'll go to 100 people and tell them their story, but never say, will you pray for me? Will you go there? So if you have that impossible thing, the first thing is you need to cover in prayer. Let's read the rest of the story, verse 6 through 17.
When Herod was about to bring him out for trial, that very night Peter, bound with 2 chains, was sleeping between 2 soldiers, while the sentries in front of the door guarded the prison. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. Striking Peter on the side, he woke him up and said, "Quick, get up." And the chains fell off his wrist. "Get dressed," the angel told him, "and put on your sandals." And he did. "Wrap your cloak around you," he told him, "and follow me." So he went out and followed, and he did not know that what the angel did was really happening, but he thought he was seeing a vision. After they passed the first and second guards, they came to the iron gate that leads into the city, which opened to them by itself. They went outside and passed one street, and suddenly the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I know for certain that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from Herod's grasp and from all that the Jewish people expected." As soon as he realized this, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John Mark, where many had assembled and were praying. He knocked at the door of the other gate, and a servant named Rhoda came to answer. She recognized Peter's voice, and because of her joy, she did not open the gate, but ran in and announced that Peter was standing at the outer gate. "You're out of your mind," they told her. But she kept insisting that it was true, and they said, "It's his angel." Peter, however, kept on knocking, and when they opened the door and saw him, they were amazed. Motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he described to them how the Lord had brought him out of prison. "Tell these things to James and the brothers," he said, and he left and went to another place.
All right, so that's the story of Peter. What really jumped out at me, and we're going to go back and look a little bit more at that, but the first thing that jumped out at me, and I have a little ADD, so I will think of one thing, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot all this and have to go back. But the thing that jumped out at me when they said, "You are out of your mind," that's what jumped out at me. You're out of your mind, right? Okay, so the reason that jumped out to me is because when we're going into the impossible and we're trying to make that possible, we're going to have people that are naysayers, right? We're going to have people in our lives, and we may have friends. And I've had to learn through this process that I've been going through that you may have tons of friends, but you got to find the ones that are going to lift you up. You're going to have to find the ones that believe that impossible can be possible. You have to find those people that are going to be there in their life, because if I'm standing up here and Lisa we're not doing this, Lisa, don't worry. And I was trying to pull her up, she could pull me down a lot easier, right? So when we're going through those moments, we have to be able to say, you know what? Naysayers will always be present in an impossible journey. They're going to be there to distract you, to push you aside. You see, because God sometimes allows circumstances to make it appear as if evil is winning. You're going to be in situations as Christians where you'll go through it and you're feeling like evil's just winning, right? But only for a time. Because if you truly believe that the impossible can be possible, there's going to be a time where those tides turn, where that devil runs, where people are going to have to flee, and you're going to be able to move forward in what you've prayed for and believed in the whole time. You see, at first glance, it looked doomed. But the reality is that God was using this as an example of his power. You look through it, it says we see that throughout the Bible, you can see different stories where the same exact thing happened. Jonah in the whale. Can you imagine being in the whale? Thinking, oh, this is possible. I'm going to get out of here. Number one, and you were swallowed. Okay? But to think that, okay, this is going to be the end. Right? You got David and Goliath. I mean, you think, David had to know that the impossible was possible. He had to get that in his spirit, that was what was going to happen. Right? Okay, then we also have Daniel in the lion's den. Can you imagine being thrown into a lion's den? And I told the youth about these stories before, and I said to them, it wouldn't be as powerful if they threw Daniel in there with kitty cats. Right? I mean, so God could have thrown in kitty cats, but then what would you have learned from that? You could have been swallowed by, I don't know what you would have swallowed by actually, but if it was a little minnow, and it, and then we talked about, David and Goliath. If Goliath came out and he was 4 foot tall, would you be like, oh yeah, kill him, right? So there had to be those, I say that to say there had to be those big obstacles, right? If there wasn't those big obstacles, then there wouldn't have been a story. And if there wouldn't have been a story, we wouldn't learn from it. That was their mountains, and they stood the test. So just like them, we have to do the same thing, because if we see these things, why do we go into panic mode? If we read about all these stories, why do when our giants, when our whales come to us, why do we go in panic mode? In times of trials, those may be the very platforms that God uses for the gospel to be displayed through you. You see, evil may seem to be winning, but God has established hundreds, and thousands, and we win. All we have to do is just trust him. See, Herod, I love this about this story, because Herod had to know that Peter was a huge threat. Because if you read those stories about those huge threats, guess what happens? You go through the thing, and you see those huge threats, and he chained him to 2 guards. So here you had Peter chained to 2 guards, and they were there sleeping. Then you had 2 guards on the outside of the gate. And so he knew that this was a huge threat. It wasn't that Peter was like Samson and could tear through all that. He just knew that God was on his side and that something was going to happen. See, what are you What are you a big threat to? Are you a big threat? Think about that. Who are you a threat to? Because if you're a threat to no one, you need to figure that out. Right? Because that's what we are. We should be big threats to the devil and to anyone who's standing in our way. We should open our hearts and minds to that. If we're not, we should be. If you never practice for a football game or a basketball game, are you a threat? No, you're not going to win. I'm not a big sports person, but I know that if they don't practice, they're not going to win. Just like in fine arts. If we don't get the practice time in, we're not going to win. And so the thing is, to be a big threat, our practice is reading our Bible. Our practice is coming to church. Our practice is to pray without ceasing. Our practice is to get into some devotion, get involved. That should be our practice. Because we're not a big threat if we don't. As a church, we're not a big threat if we don't go out of these four walls and go out into the community and do something. So now we're going to go to how to bridge impossible to possible. Okay? So I was thinking about this, and this is the part that actually came to me first. So this is the part that when I was going through something that God really opened. See, the only difference in impossible to possible is I am. The letters I and M. If you take that I and M off, that makes possible, right? And that seems pretty simple, right? But I was praying, and I know it had to be God because I'm not that bright. Okay? So I know that He had to give this to me. So I was thinking about my story. And a lot of you know my story, but I'm not going to go in huge detail. And I'm not telling you this because, I want you to praise me or great things. But, for me, and I'm just going to share mine, it is that a little over 3 months ago, weight was an issue for me. Okay? And I had got to a place where that no one really knew, but I was in a very dark place. Very few people knew. I would walk outside every morning and put on this mask because I had a public job, and I had to be a youth pastor, and I had to be a praise and worship pastor, and I just had to act like everything was okay. And so I would walk through that, okay, daily. I never could defeat it. I thought that I could move this or change that, but it would not happen. You see, God, I got down and defeated and weighed 107 pounds. Okay? And so no one knew, and I don't think I looked like I weighed 107 pounds, but I was 107 pounds, and I felt like that my body was and I just was telling myself, it's okay, you're going to die. And you've had a good life, and you've done some great things. And the thing is for me is that I just started living in that impossible. I lived in it. I didn't show it. I just knew when I was at home, I was living into this place that I didn't want to be. So I decided to change something. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to give it one more chance. And 3 months later, I lost 101.9 pounds. Now, what is that about? You don't have to clap. Big thank you. What is that about? It really wasn't, for me, it wasn't about the weight. It was about the mindset. I really had to start putting that positivity through my mind. I had to really start evaluating each person in my inner circle. And like I said, pushing out, not that you're rude to them or they even know, but you're trying to find those people that are positive in your life. See, my impossible came possible because I trusted God. Every morning I would get up, I still get up every morning, and I read my whys. I read why I want to lose weight, but I also have a new why list of why I want to live my life to the fullest and why I want to put God first. And I just read every single thing off of this list. And then at the end I pray because I want that day to follow the same thing. And because I do that, things are starting to change. You see, because I took away the I am. If my people that are helping would come on up and get ready for that. Don't move too fast. Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys. All right. So I took off the I am. See, we are full of excuses. We're a world of excuses. We have to take the I'm away. Okay. So if they will hurry, that would be great. Thank y'all. Just kind of stand around. Okay. Some of y'all come over here. Yeah. All right. So we had to take off the I's. Okay? So what do we have here? Just some things that I want to... I am not strong. Yeah, that was wrong, but it's okay. I'm not loved. I'm not pretty. You can come up with your own. I'm not worthy, I'm not talented, and I'm not smart. So we put those in our lives. We build them up. High school, I talked to them about this. High school years, that's where we really get them. We get the IMs in our life. But then they start even going further. You may have lost tons of weight, but if you don't feel good about yourself, you still have those IMs. You may be the smartest person out there, but you may feel like that you're not worthy. Okay? So you have those IMs in your life. I'm not strong, I'm not smart, I'm not worthy, I'm too big, I'm too small, I'm too shy, I can't do that. So I was thinking about that, and God said, but you have to say, I am, because I am. That's what came into my spirit. God said, you have to say, I am. And then I was like, well, what does that mean, God? Like, I understand I am. But he said, because you add the A, because A stands for ability. God gives each and every one of us ability in our lives. Ability. And the definition is the possession of the means or skills to do something. That we all have ability to do something in our lives. You see, so when you add that A, when you put it's the ability between the I and the M, you get I am. See, your ability opens up many possibilities. So a lot of people deal with this one, I'm not pretty. But if you flip that over and put ability in it, it turns into I am pretty. See, God made you in your perfect image, you know? And it doesn't matter if I lose another 200 pounds or not. I'm happy with myself. Okay? So this one was I'm not loved. So you turn that around and put the ability in, and you are loved. I'm not strong. You turn that around, you put the ability in, I am strong. And it just goes on and on over here. Go ahead and turn it. I am worthy. I am talented, I am smart. If you start feeding that into your life, what would happen? Think about that. If you start praying and putting the ability into it, things are going to change. You see, all things are possible if you open your mind to it. If we can go and get the piano thing up here. All things are possible, guys. If you apply your possible attitude to all areas, there's no stopping you. You see, you put God in there who gives you ability, and then it comes together. What can change? What can you change? What are things that you can move those mountains with? What can you overcome today? Those mountains, I want to go back to those. You think about those real quick. Those mountains that you face, what are some things that you know you can do? I want you guys to know that today is not just any other day. This is the day that you can move those mountains, that you can push things out of the way. Because that's what he gave me to give to you today. If we can stand. I just want you guys, I want to leave you with one verse, and we're going to pray, but you know the verse, and it's something that we can say without even looking. But it's, I can do all things. It didn't say I can do some things. It didn't say I can do, I can do a little bit, or I can kind of do it. It says I can do all things through Christ, who gives me strength. And I just want you guys to think, if there's something you're dealing with today, if there's some mountain that you need moved, maybe it's a mountain that you thought would be moved a while back, and you went through that process and then you just gave up on it. Maybe it's something that is internal in you that you need to get rid of. Maybe it's one of these issues that are standing up here. Whatever that mountain is, that can be moved this morning. I just want to pray over you guys, and then they're going to sing. And if you need to come up here, just come on up. We want to pray with you. We want to help you move those mountains. And like I said, sometimes you have to be humble and just move. Maybe you have to be the first thing that moves for that mountain to move. Lord, we just thank you for this day, God. Lord, we pray right now, God, that we will turn our arms to I am. Lord, that we will be bold in everything that we do, Father. God, that no matter what we're going through, God, that you can help us push those mountains out of the way. Maybe those mountains have been there our whole life, and we're so comfortable. We sit on the side of those mountains. But right now, God, make us so uncomfortable that we want to get ready to move those mountains, to trust you more than we ever have before, to push ourselves more than we ever have before, Father. God, I pray right now, God, that you will give us boldness in these moments, God, that whatever word was said today, Father, that you will open our hearts and our spirits to those, God, and that boldness will flow through us, God. And if we need to come to this altar, I pray right now, God, that you give us boldness to do so. In your name, amen.